Hi, my name is Ola. I'm an engineering lead / software engineer. I'm a part of this community for past over 10 years, and today I'm going to be here as a moderator. I'm also coming from Ukraine, so the topic is very relative to me. So first of all, thank you for deciding to join this panel discussion and showing your support and trying to learn more about the current situation in Ukraine. And I also want to thank organizers for inviting us here to have this panel discussion, because it's not an easy topic. It can cause a lot of controversy, but still we are here, and we are really hoping that by the end of this talk you will learn yourself how you can help, how you can contribute to people in need. And yeah, first I would want to start with introducing all the panelists today, who are also a member of our community, and from the very first days of the war they were actively involved in helping people. So I would start with Chris, who is an engineering manager at NordVPN. He's activist himself in LGBTQ+ community. Chris?
Yeah, I guess that's one of the activisms. Yeah, so my name's Chris. I work for Nord Security. I guess I'm here for two particular reasons. The first is obviously starting at Nord fairly recently, a cybersecurity company based in Lithuania. So for people in Lithuania, this has been quite a personal situation, a former Soviet-controlled country, and I've fallen in love with this country. I mean, that they crowdfunded themselves 5 million for a drone. I think what a beautiful nation. Just it's like a little Rottweiler. They all bark and they all bite, no matter how big the threat. But also because of my activism, I'm quite interested, because we try our best to fix things when the world is bad. So obviously I was involved in that too. Once this all kicked off, I did what I could. So.
Thank you, Chris. Next, Volodymyr, coming from Ukraine. He is an Android lead at Snap Mobile for the past years, and from the very beginning he was very actively involved in helping Ukrainian, and of course personally very much affected. So Volo?
Yes, my name is Volo. I work for Snap Mobile, as Ola just said, and we are a fully remote company, and we have dozens of colleagues living and working in Ukraine. That means we got involved in volunteering from the very first days of the war. And we are still doing that, helping our colleagues, friends, and their families there. Thank you.
Next, I have Emma here. She is the founder of Ukraine Tech Collective. Also, she is a co-founder and a CEO of fitness startup, Sudor. Emma?
Hey, so it's working. Is it working? Yeah. Just checking. So my day job, I'm the founder and CEO of Sudor, which is a creator economy platform designed for the fitness industry. And our engineering team is based in Ukraine and has been since day one. So when the war started, I felt really passionately about doing something proactive to help my engineers first and foremost. And then that kind of grew, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, into the Ukraine Tech Collective, which is a sort of slightly larger movement to support the engineering community in the Ukraine.
And Yoni, you're an active member of Android community and as well active member of Ukrainian dev community. You're also a mobile tech lead at Monday.com, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And I'm here for a couple of reasons. Is mainly to inspire you for the action. For me, the whole story started on the day of the war itself. I was sucking into the news and wasn't even able to work. So I decided to go to Poland, to the border, to Ukraine. At the beginning, I didn't know what I'm going to do. Like, I had this backup plan of getting a car and at least like taking people from the border to some big cities like Krakow, and then turn out like we established full refugee camp with the logistics, with Monday integration, building the app to support matching and verifying drivers. Then later we organized DevFest Ukraine to raise donations for the NGOs in the Ukraine.
Wow, that's quite impressive. Thank you. So why do we talk about war here at DroidCon? So the war in Ukraine, it affected a lot of people across the world, and of course, it's the most affected people in Ukraine. With Ukraine being a home for over 200,000 IT specialists, I'm almost sure that most of you have worked or know at least one of them. So they, along with other many people in Ukraine, they're facing now a lot of challenges, and those challenges is like something that you could have not imagined can happen to you. So some of the challenges are like homes being destroyed. They have to work in the constant, like, so if you're working, if you're happy to have the job, so if you haven't lost your job, you have to work under the constant air raids. And then you also, like, families are being separated, because if you want your kids to be in a safe area, you would send them sometimes abroad. That also brought the topic of people, like over 5 million Ukrainians are currently refugees in Europe, and almost 1 million are currently now in Germany. So talking about all of this, we as a community, we want to try to focus on how we can help those people, how we can help people in Ukraine, how we can help people outside of Ukraine, and we want to share some tips and experience, our own experience on like the actionable items you can do that like overall improve this. And it can, of course, we are talking about Ukraine now because that's very relevant, but it can also expand further. Like it can also be programs for helping refugees, not only from Ukraine, but from other countries as well. I would like to start with the first question to you, Emma. So you're a founder of Ukraine Tech Collective. Can you tell us more about what it is and how did you come up with it?
Yeah, so I mean, a sort of memory that's, I guess, etched is waking up on the first day of the war to a Slack message from one of my engineers saying, hey, Emma, the war has started. I need to take vacation. And I was like, okay. So I spoke to him, and I suddenly understood why for the 2 years that he's worked for us, that he hasn't taken a single day's leave, even though I've repeatedly asked him many times. And in his head, he'd been basically saving up all of his vacations so that if the war broke out, that he could just take leave for a while. So anyway, so I understood this. I saw how resourceful our team were being in terms of working from their bunkers or their basements, or installing Starlink as soon as Elon Musk took it in. And one time they dialed in to stand up from a cinema because there was air sirens going off in their local area. And on the one side, I had this like really strong, I guess, human like desire to like help these guys. They worked for us. They built our platform from the bottom up. They've been like completely crucial to any success that we've had. And on the other side, I obviously have investors saying, but Emma, you need to make a plan. Like you can't just sort of assume that everything will be fine, limited resource, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I sort of figured out that provided I could have the key roles covered and the key the business critical tasks still done, then I would still be able to pay my team. The business would be able to continue to move forward, and everyone could kind of, I don't know whether win is the right word, but everyone could, like, the needs of everyone could be balanced. And kind of realized that we were probably not the only company in that situation. Spoke to quite a few people that I knew in the tech community, actually predominantly in Berlin. Started to understand that a lot of the bigger organizations, companies with valuations of multiple billion euros, had actually just said, like, we'll support the team if they're refugees or if they need to move country, but if they get signed up to the army, then that's a breach of contract and we'll stop paying them. And I was like, okay, there has to be a better way than this. If I'm as a small startup trying to figure out a plan, surely others can as well.
I mean, this is very great that you were thinking about like solving these problems, and I think I didn't mention it before, but there is this martial law in place in Ukraine, which means that men of age from 18 to 60, they're not allowed to leave the country. So this means that all the tech specialists, like in our case, that are working remotely, they cannot just switch a country. They cannot be a refugee. So most of the refugees that we are talking about, those are their family members, like not only them, but like overall the Ukrainian people. There's mostly women and kids who are refugees. So like pulling funds and not bringing money to the country, it was like very harmful to Ukrainians.
Yeah, completely agree. And so basically how... So how the Tech Collective works is essentially we have volunteers on the one side who are engineers from all around the world, Silicon Valley, through Europe, through Asia, Australia, sign up basically to donate their skills, so their time. And then on the other side, we have companies that sign up basically that need help or need cover. So in a really sort of high level way, it's kind of like maternity leave, but for military leave. So if you know any companies that are in a similar situation to ours, we would absolutely love to chat to them and see if we can help. We have over 250 engineers signed up, ready to donate their time and their skills.
Well, that's quite impressive. It's really great for these people to contribute their time. Thank you. Chris, I will go to you now. So you're working at NordVPN, and I know that your company, they did like quite some initiatives to help Ukrainians. If you can you please like share those activities and also, as well like your perspective on like what are the important things and how people can help?
Well, like I said, it's I can only say what I can, but it's a very personal situation for people at NordVPN. One of the things some of the things that the company has done, Nord Security has done, we did the obvious. We discontinued all of our business services in Russia. But what we did do is we provided, and this is where discussions like this get a bit grayer rather black and white. We provided free VPN to Belarus, to Ukraine, and to Russia. And the reason for that is because if we allow information, if we sort of take away their ability to look at real news, that's not so much a sanction on them, it's a sanction on us. And a lot of this is the information war. It is convincing people in Russia that their government is doing something wrong when their government is piling all that information on people. That's we've something like 300, I think, of our employees have become activists in helping Ukraine. Me personally, I've done precisely whatever I can, but what I guess I'm interested in really more than anything is how we can convince governments to do something about it, because I get angry every time in Tempelhofer I walk past that tin shanty town, which is where we're expected to put refugees, rather than sort of put them in proper housing, which we can do if we had the political will. So what I'm really interested in is using tech, like I've done in the past, to try and get some form of change, put pressure on elected representatives to do that little bit more, to make sure that we treat refugees with the humanity which they deserve.
Thank you, Chris. We'll get back to this ideas a bit later. I would want to also, like, Yoni, you were mentioning that from the beginning of the war, you went to the Polish-Ukrainian border to help the refugees. What was your experience there? What do you think are the most urgent needs of those people on the border?
So, as you mentioned at the beginning, it was only women with the children, and usually it's like 1 small suitcases with their entire life. And at the beginning, it was like chaos, completely chaos. Basically, the Poland government was completely unprepared for what is happening. So basically, they just gave us huge Tesco shop. It's empty out of all equipment and magazines, and that's it. So there was like 15,000 of people arriving daily, with no idea what to do next, where to go, equipment, like basic stuff, etc., etc. So, by the way, one of the Ukraine community members of the GDG, he just, like, when I arrived there, he introduced me to one of the volunteers that introduced me to another volunteer, and then we just figure out that there's just 40 people around here, volunteers trying to help, and there's no any coordination. So we just started to build logistic inside the camp, like very basic stuff, like how many beds we have, how many medical equipment. We started to manage it through Monday.com. At the beginning, I was alone, but I was like posting in our company Slack updates about what's happening, what we will today, like what flow inside the camp we organized. I remember the day, like at the beginning I arrived, it was like completely chaos. Like think about huge hall with a lot of people arriving, shouting with the dogs and children, small children that are crying, completely mess. And 1 week after, suddenly you see like normal lines of the people that come to the register, volunteers on the other side. People get equipment that they need on the first arriving, like SIM cards, blankets, medical equipment, and we start to see this order. Then we figure out another problems, like there was a problem with the human traffic. So on one side we had a lot of drivers and volunteers across Europe that were arriving and offering ride, offering place to stay, even work. But on the other side there were criminals that were using this situation for their own benefit. So we'll build a system that actually it was like hooking into the Airbnb, and I remember that I saw there is some verification process that asks you to upload your passport, etc. So I was just checking their API, so that they were using Authentics, and then I just like reach out to them saying, I'm the border trying to build this verification for the drivers to check if they're legit or not. And then we like, I put it in our R&D Slack. I think in like 8 hours already has full integration in Monday. So you fill the form, you upload your passports, and they get verified. And then we know that the driver is legit or not.
So basically you're saying which like promotion of the awareness about what's happening helped you to get all the engineers within your company to build this solution. That's
yeah, one of the things was like just speaking and showing, it actually create this bonus within the entire company, within R&D. So people was just jumping, how can help, how can build, like, and we're all engineers and we have this superpower of building things very fast. And everyone was like, we want to help, what we need to build. And it was like, within hours, we had things deployed to production, ready for use, and was like huge benefit to the refugees.
Yeah, that's really good. I remember in Berlin when everything started, we also like kept on having different ways of managing things, and every station eventually got some new software update, and that it got a bit better. So thank you for the efforts. We are switching to Volo. So can you tell us, like you as a Ukrainian, you probably have a lot of contacts with your family, with your friends. So from your perspective, what are currently the biggest needs for people in Ukraine?
Yes, so currently the war is far from being over, and since our economy is going down on a large scale, like it will drop like 50% this year. This is huge, it's like 30 years of development. That means that we are in great need of donations and help, financial help from the outside. So if you check any Ukrainian network, any Ukrainian segment of the internet, you will see that many people are just raising donations for their friends, for their families. War has become much closer to each of us than it used to be on the very first week, because now basically everyone has a close friend or a family member who's in the army and often on the front line. And I'll be honest, like we are not like the super equipped army, and we need help from the outside. And sometimes there's basic needs like combat application tourniquets which stop bleeding, for example, when the soldier is wounded. Sometimes it's equipment that helps them to save their lives. And that's why it's important to not only to help refugees, which is good and right, it's a great thing to do, but also to donate and help Ukrainian army, because by doing that, you are helping the war to come to the end, actually.
So you're saying that people, like donation to the army needs is quite an important topic, but it's very controversial. So like a lot of people have some moral blockers in terms of like they don't want to donate to any military purpose. Coming to this topic, Emma, I would ask you, because you're coming outside of Ukraine, but you were mentioning earlier to me that you have a colleague that had to do this military service. What was your perspective? So like knowing being a complete outsider and getting to know this person directly in your company, what is your perspective on donation towards military purposes?
Yeah, so we've actually had 2 of our engineers, and we're a small engineering team of 4, so it's half our engineering team that have done time in military camps, military training, civil support for the military in Kiev. So when I was raising funds personally, I was kind of really torn, because I knew from the team, if I asked them, which I had, they wanted the funds to go straight to the army. I also knew that if I was raising from kind of my network, which is predominantly British, a lot of British people feel much more comfortable donating to the British Red Cross than they do to military support. I had the guys on the ground telling me that they didn't think that the Red Cross were being particularly useful, and that they didn't think it was particularly relevant to send funds there. So anyway, after a lot of research and again consulting with the team, I found a sort of middle ground, which is a foundation called, you might need to correct my pronunciation, the Prytula Foundation, where they do, and I think he was the foundation that raised the money recently for the 3 drones that Ukrainians managed to crowdfund and buy. Incredibly well trusted in Ukraine, but also from their website, it's not just military support, they also support the wounded and helping with refugees. So for me personally, that was something that I found that struck this balance between being useful to Ukrainians on the ground, as well as being an organization that actually people who normally wouldn't feel comfortable donating to the military were actually comfortable to donate to.
Thank you for sharing your story on your side. I just want to mention I'm not promoting to donation to military and something like everyone has to decide themselves what they're comfortable with and what they like which organizations they want to donate, because it's mostly about raising awareness that even like a small donation on a regular basis, it's quite important and helpful. And there's so many needs. There are like humanitarian aid you can donate to. There are like animals being rescued from Ukraine, and I know like a bunch of organizations that are being set up within like a short period of time to save those animals and bring them from Ukraine here, which already have their happy life and homes. There are also like a lot of organizations that collect in humanitarian aid for people directly like at the refugee camps, but also in Ukraine, because there are shortages in a lot of like some of the food supplies or like basic hygienic needs. And also if you're talking about military, it's people who are protecting the freedom of Ukraine and actually maybe even beyond the Ukraine. And those people, they're being wounded, so like medical help for the military, it's a good alternative as well, but please decide for yourself. Chris, talking also about the governments and lobbying and the governments taking decisions, you have some experience in there, you have some ideas, can you please share with us those?
Yeah, my experience is on a much smaller scale. You know, as a tech person and as an activist, I had some success in the past of merging the 2 together. It was during the same-sex marriage campaign in the UK, and we knocked together a very quick app to help lobby the House of Lords in a very, very quick amount of time. Didn't expect it to take off, and in 2 weeks, 15,000 emails were sent. It probably helped that Stephen Fry tweeted about it, and our rubbish 299 server fell over. 1.6 million people tried to access it at once. But what that did teach me, and I think what people have probably learned in the past few years, is that tech can be used to influence political and social change, and it can be used especially to bring people together to invoke that change. So I think one thing that I would love to sort of promote the idea of people here today is think about what you can do to sort of help. You know, we can do things as individuals that donate, and that's really, really important. But, you know, in Germany in particular, I feel like this country's doing the political equivalent of changing their profile picture on Facebook, and rather than actually doing anything particularly meaningful. And in order for that to happen, you need to put as much pressure on your elected representatives as possible. And as Android developers, we have that power. You know, we write a few lines of code, we can bring people together in order to do that. So I really would love to sort of see something along those lines afterwards, not just seeing what we can do, but also bringing people together to invoke that change politically.
That sounds like a good idea for a hackathon.
Yes.
Cool. So maybe you can pick it up and think and organize one with people to participate and contribute their code. So, Joni, coming back to you. Do you want to add anything about the donations or fundraisers?
So speaking of leading by example, we as a developers, like our superpower is like organizing conference, writing code, giving talks. So one of the ways we found to raise donations is to organize conference. So what we did is together with folks from Ukraine, from GDG, Lviv, Kiev, and other communities, we just organized conference, like online conference, and we invite a lot of speakers, like from the Google, from Wix, and other companies, from Monday.com as well. And we succeed to raise over $130,000 to donate to one of the NGOs in the Ukraine, just by doing what we're good at it, and just like stepping out of the comfort zone, organizing this conference, and it was pretty successful.
Thank you. So we are just discussing what are the tips for helping people in Ukraine, raising money, donating your time, or organization that can use this platform to fill out their Ukrainian missed employees. The next topic I would want to discuss is now, what about helping refugees? What are the ways we can help refugees on the ground here, being already in a safe place, but they're facing a lot of challenges. They don't often speak the language. They living in Germany, they don't have experience of living in Germany. They don't have experience with German bureaucracy. They have a culture shock, and I'm not even talking about all the horrors that are running away and worrying about their families back in Ukraine. So how do you think, as a community, can help those people? Volo, do you want to start?
Yes, so what you mentioned, I mean, I wasn't a refugee, but I was also struggling with German bureaucracy and culture shock here, yeah, so I cannot imagine what those people are going through right now. So, but we as a community can greatly help them by providing free classes and free courses, providing the teaching materials to them, helping them to learn the language, helping them to learn IT technologies and get into proper job and build their lives here while they cannot return to Ukraine. With that, we also do kind of donation, because when they have a proper job, the money that they earn here, they can send it back to Ukraine, also helping their families that they left behind. And all of those people, they are dreaming to return back to Ukraine. So if we help them now, we'll help to rebuild Ukraine in the future.
Yeah, that's also a really good way of building connection between countries. So those people coming back, they will have this connection to you, and I think it's for the good when the world is being united and more united, and we bring down these barriers between nations and differences. Chris, do you have some ideas, or is there anything you want to add?
I guess, a lot of my sort of direct, practical refugee advice comes from a friend of mine who works, she's currently in Ukraine as a journalist, and she spent a lot of time with refugees, not just with Ukraine, but for Afghanistan as well. And for, generally speaking, it's already been covered, people that can help with the language, people that, especially in German bureaucracy, can help, maybe go along or volunteer, go along with them to their meetings so they can translate, so they can help out. And very, very practical things that you don't think about, like pay-as-you-go SIM cards. Donating things like that are really, really useful, because it's communication back home, or just communication in general that you need in order to, simple things, to register on a website for a number of services, you need to be online, and it's very, very difficult to do that if you don't have access in Germany. So there are lots of very, very practical things that you can do as a volunteer, and I would suggest maybe just finding one of these organizations and offering your time. That would probably be the best thing that you could do.
Thank you. Jenny?
So we'll divide it in two things. In terms of so I really believe a lot of building confidence for the refugees in their new place. We don't know how longer the war is going to continue. On the other side, there is a people lives, usually with family, children's. So building this confidence is a lot to do about the work, right? So we have this proper workplace with supportive colleagues. It's much easier to overcome all these issues. So I'm looking this like how we can within our company to promote this, like to hire more people, refugees, but probably not speaking like Germany or Hebrew in our case. So it's like more about doing what is the right rather than what is easy, right? So like, for example, we hire one of the Ukrainian refugees, and like our team, I can convince them that actually switching all our dailies, iterations, weeklies, and meetings into English will not going to be so painful as we think, but like benefit that we will get will be much higher. And on the other side is, I really believe in mentorship. So Chris, you mentioned a lot of like all basic stuff that are maybe obvious for us in our countries, but may become very complicated for others. So become someone that actually mentoring, like someone that can guide you on how to do things properly, how to build, like we usually referring to the mentorship as like in your career, right? So it shouldn't be only in your career, also in like life decisions, how to build your place in the new country, and like actually to guide someone along the way, not just like one time, but over time, especially like meeting once in a week, asking how he's doing, how he can help, what's the current issues. It can be really, really beneficial. So I'm mentoring 2 families right now, and I see how they're successfully established their life in Israel, just because there's someone that can help them to guide in all this.
This is really amazing. I'm hearing it for the first time, and it's quite admiring me, like knowing, like, so basically, if you live in Germany or any other country and you know some refugees, maybe that's one of the things you can do. You can help one of the families, just like in your free time to, I don't know, like reveal what is German bureaucracy is, help them with some documents and so on. I think that they would be really grateful to you for the rest of their lives. Emma?
I mean, this is not really a topic that I can talk about personally. I spend most of my time in Cape Town, so there's not so many Ukrainian refugees making it there. But I think from like a perspective of what I have tried to do is be like very flexible in terms of like if you are working with Ukrainians that are either still in Ukraine or that are refugees, just being like open to moving, like really simple things, moving meetings around, doing them at different times, being available at weekends if they're choosing to work at weekends so they've got some free time during the week. I think there's like really small things that can be done to actually make it work for everyone. And in general, I've felt very passionate about, kind of said at the start, be continuing to pay and employ Ukrainians, even if they're not working kind of hours that work for me, and if I'm having to work my Saturdays and Sundays to explain sprint tickets, because I kind of have felt really important to keep money flowing into the country and actually enable people then to put that money into the military if they want to, and ensure that kind of the economy is boosted as much as I personally can. But yeah, the refugee I can't speak to personally.
May I just quickly add, you just reminded me actually, I think there's more than just people that are already here, but if you're a hiring manager in a company or you're involved in the recruitment process, one thing you can do is to make your process a bit smoother or a bit more empathetic to people who are day in, day out having to wait for these sirens to happen. So when it comes to the technical test, make sure that your interviewers are prepared to identify that there may be situations, they're in immense stress, and maybe sort of accommodate for these situations. One thing that I've done for people applying from Ukraine or anywhere where they want to sort of talk is they get my Telegram details, so they can contact me through separate channels, so they don't sort of send things through emails. If they have any questions, they wouldn't necessarily want to be seen anywhere else. So things like that, just go the extra mile if you are a hiring manager to sort of help get people over.
Thank you, Chris. Before going to the questions from the audience, if you have any, I would want to finish maybe this panel discussion with every one of the participants sharing maybe one thing that anyone in this room can do to help people in need, like in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. Who wants to start? Hello?
Yes. So one big topic, we should raise the awareness about these wars through the world, because it's obvious that with the course of time, people get tired of the news and they think that's probably things are getting better. That's not the case at the moment. And I think the level of awareness is quite high here in Europe or in North America, maybe a bit less in North America. But what I would like to ask the community to do is to spread the information that you heard here, raise the awareness if you are coming from countries in Africa, Asia, and South America. It's really important for people to understand that that's just not the war of some white Europeans over there. It's important to understand that it's a war for democratic values, and the outcome of this war can have consequences for the whole world. It's a big topic, so we don't have time right now, but I'll be happy to answer all of your questions about it after the session.
Thank you. Chris? Oh, sorry. You see, being in the middle. Chris?
I mean, I was torn between saying about whether we do so, be empathetic to individuals, but I think your point hit the familiarity situation is when things become, you know, it's been going on for so long, people just sort of see it as this thing that's happening quite far away but doesn't really affect them. And you need to sort of really drive home that these are actual human beings every day that are being displaced. And I think one point I would make, I know this is a tech conference, we try not to be too political. If Ukraine falls, I don't think it's going to stop there. And I think it's a shame that you sort of have to raise this point to try and make people care about it. But deep down, let me make this point individually, I'm sure my company will back me, but fascism must always be defeated. And you have to always do everything you can to lobby your representatives, to help aid and to defeat this, because it's not going to go away just by hoping that it's going to stay in that part of the world, because it won't. And we have a moral, humane duty to make sure that we do this.
Thank you, Chris. Yoni?
Yeah. So I want to use this metaphor, like how the huge wave is created, right? It starts from the small ones, from the small waves that become larger and larger and larger. So the thing is, like, it's very easy to be on this apathy side, right? So, but very hard to be on the empathy side, right? It's take a lot of guts to go out of this comfort zone. I was like, yeah, there's a war out there, like thousands of kilometers, and it's everything fine in my home, like, so why should I care? And the thing is that we as a society have this responsibility to do the things what is right. And sometimes you don't see what exactly I can do, like, yeah, I'm just one small person, right? I'm a developer that's, you know, doing my regular routine, what I can do to stop the world. And the thing is that even these small steps, even these small things that are actually huge for someone else, at the beginning, you will not be able to see it, but trust me, in a time it's become the huge wave that will come and actually to change the reality and help others.
Thank you.
Completely agree with that. I think there's a lot of small things that can be done. I think I mentioned it before, like just being flexible, being mindful of Ukrainians that you might work with. Still being open to hiring Ukrainians. I think a lot of people are actually a little bit nervous to do that because of the uncertainty. And then if you, I mean, shameless plug for Ukrainian Tech Collective, but if you do know companies that have engineering resources on the ground in Ukraine and are looking for some support, then please do send them our way so that we can match them with one of the engineers that we have signed up, willing to give time and help. But I think no action is ever too small. And if every person in this room did one small thing, whether that's donating personally, being mindful, sharing awareness, because it's true, the war is still going on. Like, I'm working with Ukrainians, and I was kind of guilty of thinking that everything had calmed down just because I have a full team at stand-up every day now. And then I asked them, and they're like, yeah, we only have one air raid siren a day now. I was like, oh, right, okay. And that's nothing, right? Like, to that just become your normal day-to-day life. It's very much still happening, and hopefully we as a community can do some small things together to make a big change.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for helping Ukrainians and everyone else affected by the war. Thank you for your small actions, and also coming here and sharing with all our community members here those actions. And I would also add that in one of the next upcoming newsletters from DroidCon, we will send the brief email listing all the fundraisers that we trust and then we know, and also like all the actions. Potentially, I'll create a diagram how you can decide how you can help better in the most efficient way. So yeah, just heads up to that. Any questions from the audience?
Don't be shy.
Hello. I just wanted to say, because we're all from IT companies, that one way to help with refugees is that they don't always have computers when they arrive to the country, or just when they have kids, they want to do schoolwork remotely. So since we're IT companies and we might probably have quite many like old laptops lying around, then one way is to donate them to the refugees. So I'm from Estonia, and we have quite huge movement also to collect broken laptops, so people who have the skills repair them and also donate them to the refugees.
Thank you for sharing. It's a really great tip, and we'll also add it to the list of actions. Thank you.
Hi, people. So it's more about mental health. So you probably have a lot of Russian contacts. So how did you find a way to speak with people from Russia?
Says so. I was born in Russia, and obviously I have a lot of relatives there. Funny thing that now I'm banning to come to Russia. Like, I also kind of lost my home because of all my activities in Ukraine. But the thing is that as much as you share, so there is obviously some kind of like, Chris mentioned it, like there is a lot of restrictions on freedom of the speech of the website that you're allowed to visit. But actually I'm become this like sort of truth. So by sharing, by talking, like my Instagram is full of the different stories from Ukrainians, from my friends. I think it's the best thing we can do to show them the truth, actually what's happening out there. It's not just like some other fake news, but sharing is the best thing to do.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think it just, you make a very good point, and I think as well as helping Ukrainians, we need to do everything we can to empower those that take to the streets in Russia as well and help them. How we do that, I'm not entirely sure beyond obviously, helping with whether it's keep staying safe online, but we need to remember there are a load of people in Russia who are doing all they can to fight their own governments, and doing so often at great risk to their own liberty, knowing full well that their families may be at great risk as well. So that would, I think, a really good point to sort of keep in mind is how we help people invoke change from inside.
I would just add that in my company I have few Russian colleagues, and some of them are based in Russia, some of them are based in Berlin, in Germany, and those people, they're very active from the very beginning of the war, so they're supporting, they're trying to find how they can help. So that was really amazing. So I have no issues talking to any of those people, and I admire them, and I'm very grateful also for their contributions. Okay. More questions? No more questions? If so, we are going to be here for the next few minutes. If you want and you have any questions or anything you want just to chat, come and talk to us. Thank you.